to share something about how to deal and respond to harmful gossip when it comes back to you and it's actually about you. This is something that I've taught about over the years, and I have some kind of radical ideas about how to deal with it. But I felt moved. I felt moved, and it felt on my heart to share a little bit about what I teach around harmful gossip because it is something that happens in the world, in business environments, in small communities, such as the one that I'm part of. And it doesn't matter how good you are or the good kind of work you're doing, it's just human nature to participate in gossiping. And I think sometimes when we gossip, and I'll be the first one to tell you, I am guilty. I have participated in harmful gossiping without giving much consideration to the impact it might have on the person I was talking about if and when it would get back to them. So I've participated in it. So I know what it's like to be in that position where I am having a conversation and I'm saying unkind things about somebody, usually because I am frustrated about a situation and it's a way for me to express that frustration, albeit extremely unhealthy. And I've also been in the position where I've had people say things that are quite hurtful about me, and those things have come back around to me, and they've been hurtful, or the comments have been shared and passed on in a way that have contaminated other relationships for me. And so, what I mean by contaminated is that it has planted seeds of thinking in another person where maybe they question my integrity or they question who I am as a person. And of course, that the ripple effect of that is it can have an impact on my work and my credibility for all of us. And so I have taught about this topic for many years, but because I'm dealing with a situation, it doesn't matter how old I get or how long I've been doing this work. I run into unhealthy gossip over and over again. And often I am in a position where I'm teaching other people how to respond to this, especially within community based service providers, if you will, or within corporate environments where these kinds of unhealthy conversations are inhibiting the kind of open, transparent communication and collaboration that leads to a positive and productive workforce. There's actually some really good reasons for why we feel like we can't say things directly to other people. Uh, and some of those reasons are valid. And so sometimes, for instance, we might feel like we can't say something directly to somebody because they're not going to understand, or maybe they're going to get defensive and they're going to have a big reaction, or they're going to blame us or somebody else for that. And so we can be afraid to come to somebody with our frustration, our upset, and have that conversation. And that's not something that we are supported to do in society. We are often, from a very young age, supported to or encouraged to deal with our own issues on our own, and to actually not have the difficult, uncomfortable conversation. It actually takes a lot of internal strength and inner power to be able to confront a person who may have a conversation with somebody that maybe we feel has more authority than us or more power than us, or that we don't agree with, and we may be afraid of their reaction. And some of those reasons have to do with childhood conditioning and what we believe about ourselves in the world and what we believe about whether or not we will be valued if we tell someone the truth. And for many of us growing up, and I can speak for myself, telling the truth was not always something that was celebrated, especially if it caused ruckus or it caused some disruption, or if it challenged the norms in my family. That my truth telling, and my seeking to be understood would get shut down really quickly. And often I would marginalized or outcast or blamed or shamed. And so some of that conditioning happens at a really early age, and we grow up to be adults that can't we don't expect a positive result when we feel like we have to say something difficult or we have to disagree or we have to stand up for ourselves. And so instead of having the difficult conversation, we go and find someone that we can vent to that maybe will agree with us. Often we look for someone who we think is going to take our side against the other person. And the problem with that is that it's extremely divisive and it's extremely polarizing. And it interferes with our ability to have the kinds of constructive, nourishing relationships that all of us, I think, deep down are really craving to have. And what I mean by a constructive relationship, in my line of work as an educator, we use the terminology of intersubjectivity. And intersubjectivity is it's when I am able to reveal what is going on inside of me to you and vice versa. And so we can be transparent and we can be vulnerable and we can be open and we can listen to each other and we can be influenced by one another. And that is when relationship becomes this really beautiful, rich site of growth and evolution. But if we haven't had a lot of practice with that, we haven't been supported to do that, those kinds of vulnerable conversations that might be uncomfortable can end up feeling quite threatening and scary. And so we just don't have them. And then we end up gossiping and getting carried away and saying things that actually can ripple out in an extremely harmful way. And one of the harmful effects is divisiveness. Um, and people becoming polarized and ending up in different camps. And that's when there's a lot of suffering usually that happens. And that's when productivity really goes down within organizations and within teams of people, is when people end up in different camps and very divided. What else do I want to tell you about this? Um, Here's the thing. This might sound a little bit woo-woo to you, but part of what I spent a lot of time looking at and writing about when I was undertaking my PhD studies was the cultivation of inner power. And because I have a background in contemplative education, which is really about looking at some of the major spiritual traditions that have been around for millennia, really, that basically teach this idea that we have spiritual power and we have inner power. And this is certainly true within Indigenous worldviews. This ability to choose our thoughts and to think good thoughts and to say good things and to see the world in a certain kind of a way and to see ourselves as powerful creators is really important. And so if someone is gossiping about you and it gets back to you and it lands on your heart in a kind of harmful way where it hurts and it feels like it's triggering, because that's often how it feels. I know that's true for me, is when something lands on my heart in a way that feels like an ouch. How could someone say that about me? That is an indication that I have my own work to do. It's an indication that something that's being said is there's a spot within myself in which maybe I was conditioned to believe something negative about myself and to feel ashamed of myself and to feel ashamed of who I am and to have self-doubt in my heart. And so that the gift of it is that it helps me to reveal what that thing is and then to have compassion towards myself and to go inside and to take up a relationship with that part of me and to figure out like what the heck, why is this landing on me in such a way that it hurts? And it's okay. Emotions are really important. They signal things to us. They have work to do and we need to pay attention to them and we need to process them. We need to digest these experiences. We need to get in touch with our emotions and our feelings. We need to process them and then we can learn from them and we can become more integrated. But if someone says something harmful about me and it gets back to me and it lands on me in such a way, it can only hurt me This is really, for me, this is, oh gosh, when I understood this, it changed everything. It only hurts me if I believe it's true. And so if in my childhood, I was raised to think that there was something wrong with me and that I was bad and that sharing emotion or oh, my phone storage was full, so I had to pause there and I had to delete a bunch of things, but I'm back. So as I was saying, it can only hurt you. Gossip can only hurt us if we believe what is being said. And if it does trigger us and stir us up, then it is an indication to do a little bit of inner work and to work on cultivating our inner power. And part of that has to do with uncovering our blind spots and the things that perhaps have been hidden from us about our own selves because we haven't had the opportunity in life for a number of reasons to actually be able to work on that. And so it's an opportunity. And there's a lot of ways that we can do that. And I can teach you some of those things. I could teach you some of the things I've done to take up a better relationship with myself and to become more integrated and to uncover some of these blind spots that I have because I can't really work with other people unless I'm constantly willing to look at myself and uncover those unearth those things, not uncover. It's more like this unearthing. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And it does feel vulnerable and it does feel messy. But on the other side of all of that, I become a stronger person. And when I become stronger and more empowered, then I'm able to show up in my life and in my work as a coach and an educator in a way that is liberatory for other people, that empowers other people, that helps other people to tap in to their unique identities and who they are. And so gossip can be a really wonderful way, a signal to work on ourselves. That's one of the things that I teach. And that's a really critical first step, always, always to cultivate an inner sense of who we are and to uncover our blind spots so that don't get caught or triggered by those things in the future. The other thing is that sometimes we actually do need to have a very difficult conversation with someone, and we need to be able to be in the discomfort of that and to speak our truth and to be willing to sit in the fire with somebody and hear their truth as well and to work through it together. This requires taking our own side and then also being able to take somebody else's side and to shift our perspective and to see where they are coming from. We actually can't take the side of another person or see where another person is coming from unless we've fully been able to stand in our own side and explore our own reasons and our own perspectives and our own emotional reactions. Some people, if you're like me in life, when I'm confronted, or most of my life, whenever I was confronted with a difficult conversation, I would tend to collapse into the other person's side right away. And so I would agree and I would take responsibility and I would jump right over on the other side with that person and take their side right away. And this is something I learned to do in my childhood. This is how I kept myself safe. This is how I survived. And it worked for many years, but there was a huge cost because it took a toll on my spirit and it took a toll on my heart. And I needed to be able to live out loud. And I needed to be able to take my own side because if I couldn't take my own side, I couldn't have equal relationships with people. They would always be out of balance and I would always feel misunderstood and I would always feel a lack of fulfillment in my relationships. And so this was a really important first step, was to be able to take my own side. And after that, after I was able to do that and I got really good at it, then I could begin shifting into the shoes of another person and seeking their perspective and asking the creator to help me see things differently from somebody else's perspective, or to at least help me explore different ways of looking at a particular situation. And that is a discipline and that is a practice. Often we see things in one way through one lens and it's one perspective. And we believe that perspective is the capital T truth, when in actuality, we are a choice about how we see something. And until we've explored our perspective and the other person's perspective, maybe a bunch of other ways of seeing a situation, We are not at choice. And when we don't feel at choice in our life about how we perceive something, then we can very quickly identify with being a victim and being stuck and having no power and having no choice. And that's a disempowering narrative. So exploring perspectives is really important. And that's an activity and an exercise I do with people to help shift perspective and explore perspective and help people make an empowered choice about how they want to see something. When you're in conflict with someone and someone's been talking shit about you, that's tough. That is tough. Our first instinct is generally to defend ourselves, especially if we've been raised with blame and we want to defend. And the minute we defend, relationships dead in the water, communication's dead in the water. We've got to loosen up around this. And part of how we can loosen up around it is by building our inner strength, knowing that we're powerful, knowing that we're a choice, knowing that we're not victims, that we always can choose a different way of perceiving something, a different way of thinking about something. And sometimes for me, when I've been able to make that shift and stand in the shoes of another person that has brought harm to me because they've gossiped about me, because they felt that they couldn't say it to my face, I learned something that was hidden from me that I can really benefit from understanding. Sometimes I have aha moments and I'm like, I had no idea. This is the work that we need to be doing in relationships and in organizations and in systems. It's not always about conflict resolution. Sometimes if there's deep personal work that has to happen and that people in the world and in our lives are a reflection of us and they bring us these beautiful opportunities to self-reflect and to work on ourselves and cultivate our inner power and grow. So that's the other thing. So it's the first thing is we have to be able to take care of ourselves and our feelings and dig deep and figure out if someone said something about us, do we believe that about ourselves? And at what point in our life did we buy into that narrative about our own self? The next step is to work with perspectives and to work with taking our own side, taking the side of the other person, exploring other ways of looking at the situation and learning from it, making an empowered choice and learning from that and feeling like we aren't victims, but that we actually could take something that seems like a really negative thing and we could turn it into something to worry. Sometimes for me, another person just needs to feel heard. They haven't felt safe. And if I'm over here feeling like the victim, I'm not able to enter into that relationship and offer a safe connection in which that person could explore with me and we could both learn and grow, hold each other up and become stronger together. And I think that's what our communities need. I think that's what our world needs. I think that's what the business world needs. I think that's what the planet needs. We need a softer, kinder population of people who don't identify as being victims and not being a choice. And I know some people say, well, some people have circumstances that they can't change, and you're not considering that they may be completely disempowered. And so here's the thing is, yeah, I do believe that some people are in really shitty situations, a shitty job, maybe a single parent, and they have to stay in a crappy job that they hate where they get treated like shit all the time and there's tons of gossip and people aren't very kind to them and it feels like they have no option, but they have to stay there. It's true. People have crappy hands dealt to them. But this is what I do believe. I believe that we're all powerful creators. I think that we all have inner power. I think we all are able to tap into life force energy. This is something I'm taught by my own Indigenous elders. It's something that is taught in all spiritual traditions. And when we're able to see ourselves that way, new possibilities open up to us and we get these little nudges about what to do next. And if we have the courage to follow those nudges, our life can transform completely. I believe that is true for all people. I have to believe that. And some people might think I'm crazy, but that's what I believe. And that's who I am. I've lived through tons of loss and trauma and tragedy. And this has been my formula. This has been my formula for rising, for turning difficult situations into opportunities for growth that have spurred me on to the next chapters in my life where new opportunities awaited. And when I look back and I think, my goodness, I've learned so much over the years, and I could not have imagined landing where I am now 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. When I look back, I think, oh my gosh, I've come so far and I've come through so much. And this has been the formula that has been, this is the formula that has enabled me to rise over and over and over again. And it's a formula that works for many things, but I'm saying it's also a formula that works for gossiping. Uh, that it's never about anyone else but us. And that's for me, if I hear gossip about myself, it's just, and it troubles me. Because if it doesn't trouble you, who gives a fuck? Forget about it. You don't have to think about it. But if it lands on you in a certain kind of way, it's a signal that there's something there. And it's a signal for us to do work on ourselves. On the other, and it's all about me. On the other hand, the person who's doing the gossiping, it has nothing to do with me. It actually is all about them. But there's this really beautiful thing that can happen when we meet in the middle as mirrors for one another. And we can have these kinds of conversations. But the trick is getting people to the place where they're willing to do that and that they can take the mask off and they can drop the act. Uh, because I think people get rewarded for the act, and then there's no space for the messy working out of problem. And okay, so that's all I have to say about that piece. But I want to give you one more piece, one last piece, and I think it's really important. Encourage people who are gossiping and complaining about other people. Encourage them to look at themselves and take responsibility for their actions, for their feelings, for their internal state. Guide them to work on their inner power, to see themselves as powerful, and then encourage them to go and have the conversation that they need to have to clear something up, learn something, and make the world a better place. Don't go into a closed office and sit in a corner and shit talk people and not take any responsibility and complain and act like a victim. That is part of the problem in our world is we have a society of people who see themselves as disempowered and not powerful and not willing to take responsibility for their identities and their actions and who they are and their impact on other people. And that is what the world needs right now. That is what the world needs more than anything, in my opinion. And that, I mean, I'm sharing this in this recording right now, but that is lifetime work. It is a practice. It is a formula. If you want more information or more tools about this, then sign up for some of our courses that are going to be coming out. This is what we talk about. We want to inspire people. We want people to be badass in their compassion towards themselves and towards other people, to be radical in their relationships, and to recognize that the world is a reflection and gossip is a signal that something needs to be addressed and that you're implicated in it. And what are you going to do about it? So let's just take a minute to take a breath in through your nose, deep in your belly. Let it go. Repeat after. I am powerful. I am loved. I am courageous. I am a badass. I'm willing to look at myself and take responsibility for my actions and my impact. I'm willing to have the conversations that need to be had so I can clear things up and I can have clean relationships and I can be in integrity in the world and have a positive impact on other people. I am a force for God. I am a force for love. I speak my truth and I encourage other people to speak the truth too. I am loved for speaking my truth and I love other people for speaking their truth. I encourage other people to be the best versions of themselves by being the best version of who I am. I love myself. I'm compassionate towards myself. I care about other people. I care about the planet. I care about the future generations. And I want to make a positive difference. And the way that I'm doing that is by taking responsibility for my shit. Take a deep breath in Release. Namaste. OCM. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon.